Welcome again to the Asian Pacific Transport Forum. This is parallel session number 3, and we are going to talk about smart mobility and emerging modes in urban areas. My name is Bertrand Goalou. I'm Principal Transport Specialist at the ADB, and I'm pleased to have such a wonderful panel on stage with me. So let me introduce our speakers for this conversation that we will have this afternoon. Let's start with Kenzo Nakai. So you know him from this morning. Kenzo is the Director for Smart Mobility in the Transport Sector Office in ADB. And Kenzo will talk to us about the challenges and opportunities we see in the sector when it comes to smart mobility. Thank you, Kenzo-san, for being with us. Next to Kenzo, we have Undersecretary TJ Batan, Undersecretary for Planning and Project Development at the Department of Transportation, DOTR, of the government of the Philippines. TJ is going to talk to us about how the Philippines is developing new mobility solutions. Thank you and welcome to the panel. Let me now go to Diana Paez. Diana, you're Senior Director, Energy and Mobility at the William Davidson Institute at the University of Michigan. And you will talk about strategies and programs to support production of e-vehicles in low and middle income countries. Diana, thank you for being with us and for coming all the way from the US. That's a nice 12-hour time difference that you're dealing with, so we know what it is. Then we have a representative from the UITP, International Association of Public Transport, Purnima Singh. You are a manager for research and membership services at the UITP Singapore office. And we will also have a pre-recorded message from the Secretary General of the UITP, Mr. Mohamed Megzani. So we'll hear from him the perspective of UITP. And Purnima, you're going to talk about this very exciting topic of governance of on-demand mobility services. Next on your left, we have Mrs. Deliani Sirigar from ITDP, the Institute for Transportation Development Policy. Deliani, you are Urban and Planning and Inclusivity Manager at the Jakarta office. And you will talk to us about this very interesting initiative and project on low emission zones in Jakarta. Deliani, welcome. And last but not the least, as we say, we are very pleased to welcome Mrs. Anne-Laure Ullmann. You're project team leader at the French Development Agency, and you're in charge of transport for Southeast Asia. And you will give some perspective from the AFD on the innovation and the new approach to develop urban mobility projects. And we are very pleased to have you with us in the panel. So we'll follow the same structure as for other sessions. So we'll hear from all our speakers. You will have a few project video, including one. I'm not naming the project yet, so just to keep you thrilled, but it's very innovative project and one of the signature projects that the government of the Philippines has been developing in the past years. As a reminder, you know how it works, so we have an iPad here. If you have questions as they come, you can ask them using the forum app, and then we will be able to respond during the second part of the session. So we are very thrilled and can't wait to hear from all of you. Kenzo, will start with you. So smart mobility, and from your perspective, what are the challenges and opportunities you see in the country where ADB has operation in the urban space? Kenzo, please.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Bertrand. As introduced, my name is Kanzo Nakai, Director for the Smart Mobility Team, Transport Sector Group in ADB headquarters. Actually, the Smart Mobility Team was created last year in June. And before that, even that smart mobility, that language may not be heard in ADB, frankly speaking. It's not really highlighted. Most of the people are talking about just infrastructure, civil works, kind of things. Even in the morning, I mentioned, okay, urban transport project, that share of it is increased to 23% last year. Most of them is just civil works to support, to construct metro or maybe some, the BRT corridors kind of things. So smart mobility concept itself is quite new to even the ADB. So even ADB staff is confused with what we are doing right now. So basically, the next slide, please. Yeah, basically we are doing is to provide solutions to urban mobility problems through high quality transport services. I want to emphasize services. So far, ADB mainly focus on that infrastructure development rather than transport services. But important here for the smart mobility is how we can deliver good quality of services with some sustainability and hopefully as long as that smart mobility with digital, advanced, and maybe low carbon technology like e-mobilities. So that is what we are going to do and we try to do in our team. So as mentioned in the morning, we have a lot of opportunity for the climate financing or maybe climate related transport project. So opportunity mentioned already to some extent, but there are so great opportunity with that climate financing 100 billion US dollars from ADB. And again, with that certain, the lending volume expansion program, we could increase our lending volume by 40%, as I mentioned in the morning. So not only just 100 billion US dollars for climate financing, but that could be increased further. And maybe 25% to 30% of that, the share of that climate financing could be coming to the transport sector. So that is a great opportunity. So basically that transform portfolio to low carbon transport, typically that is a public transport like metro, but the BRT and public buses could be also the typical cases. E-mobility and the non-motorized transport, that be also the good modality of that the low carbon transport. But second areas, the opportunity could be more emerging technology. EV itself may not be really emerging right now, but still in many countries, EV's penetration rate is still low, not deployed yet fully. So the EV could be still that kind of emerging technology in many countries. As maybe later, our speaker may speak a little bit more details, but some on-demand transport or maybe connected, autonomous kind of new digital or maybe new types of vehicle, maybe ITS, intelligent transport services, or maybe traffic management. That would be also a good opportunity for us under the smart mobility team. A little bit different perspective is integrated and multimodal approach. This includes transit-oriented development, TOD, low emission zone. Also, some details will be discussed later stage. Multimodal facilities, and again, non-motorized transport. So we are very much keen on multimodal connectivity, not just talking about the metro or big infrastructure like suburban railways, but how we can deliver good transport services to the end users. That would be really a big agenda for us. And now we are doing that. And finally, one important element is how we can involve the private sector in the transport sector, transport project development. In particular, opportunity could be operation and maintenance, or maybe operation and management of public transport system. Since, again, we are providing services, not infrastructure, definitely some services should be provided by efficient entities, which could be that private sectors. That will be a great opportunity. Challenges, a lot of challenges here. I mentioned already in the morning session. One is that since this is emerging areas, maybe lack of policy, regulatory framework, some weak capacity of executing agency, these needs to be addressed. That is really challenging for us. The second is maybe we need to need more time for the project preparation. It's not easy, frankly speaking. Maybe takes not 2-3 years. Maybe takes 5 years, 6 years, even 8, 10 years to prepare and actually implement the project. So we should be patient about that project preparation implementation of these new areas. Third challenge is the very complex urban issues. Urban issue will be really complex, not just the transport matters, involving many stakeholders, municipality, the energy, urban people, police, environment. So we need to coordinate among these stakeholders that are really challenging. Finally, technology itself is changing very rapidly. Maybe even we cannot catch up with that technology development. So it's really challenging, but try to catch up with that kind of new technology development with that partnership with, for example, university or some others, academics. So that will be also important. I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenzo. And all these challenges and opportunities give us a sense of the complexity of the project and initiative we develop in urban areas. We are in Manila, so we'll take you all on a trip to Davao. Davao is a place where a very innovative program is being developed by the government of the Philippines and the support of ADB. Before we go to the Secretary TJ, we will play a video of the Davao Bus Modernization program. Just in 3 minutes, you will understand the magnitude and the impact that this project is going to produce. But also, I would like you to watch this video from the perspective of understanding the challenges and all the dimensions that are covered by this project. Let's play the video, please.
Spread across the coastal plains close to Mount Apo lies Davao City. It is the largest city in the Philippines by land area, with its population of almost 2 million people expected to double by 2050. Every day, around 800,000 people navigate the city on an eclectic mix of public transport modes. The most iconic is the jeepney, which forms the cornerstone of Davao's transport network. There are currently more than 6,000 jeepneys operating in the city. These keep the population moving, but also contribute heavily to congestion and pollution.
Para sa dili siya sayon kay na may uban good na dugay mo abot ang jeep. Kanang usay dili nakakalingkod good. Ako diha lingkuranan. Dili kay naay some awan pasahero na mo take advantage sa imo ha. Maano na lang ka kay sig lahi ang intention sa imo ha good. Wala mo pug kay choice mo na. Sige na mo jud kag sakay og jeep anan kay mao naman jud na.
The Davao City government partnered with the Department of Transportation to modernize the city's transport system with support from the ADB. The project will standardize operations and field around 1,000 buses with reliable schedules, plying designated bus routes and lanes. Bus stops, depots, and terminals will be better located.
Batan-aw nako kung address nato ang congestion problem diri sa ato ang syudad, mas mahimo siyang livable o kanang mas makatabang pud sa economy. Kay bawo man ta nga dakog loss ang gobyerno but also the people pag-abot sa traffic congestion particularly.
The political will for change has been matched by financial support for the project.
ADB was able to raise more than $1 billion for this project because the project aims to make the city more livable. In terms of CO2 emission, this project is estimated to reduce 140,000 CO2 ton equivalent per year.
A social development program ensures no one is left behind. Training and financial packages are available to the 24,000 people whose livelihoods are dependent on the current transportation network.
Mas grabe na yun ang traffic karon kay itong nagsugod ko, madagan man lang ni siya og almost 30 minutes. Karon mo abot naman gyud siya og 1 hour sobra. Dili mo gyud na nga magpermanente na lang tayo ani kay. So kung mahitabo na pohon, wala gyud tay mahimo. Dawat-dawat na lang gyud ta. Ako sir kung naa pa ko'y palad nga makatrabaho aning sa HPBS, gusto ko na ako nga driver lang gyud gyapon pareha sa ako ang trabaho karon.
The modernization of Davao City's public transport network will set the standard for creating a reliable, safe, and comfortable road user experience. At the same time, the project ensures that the people who have kept the city running for so long are an integral part of the change.
With that, let me invite you, Undersecretary TJ Batan, to give us perspective from the government of the Philippines and talk to us about the new mobility solutions that are being developed, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, the thing about new mobility is the concept of new can be relative. The Davao Bus project appears to be new, but you see versions of it existing elsewhere. So I guess one thing that we've kept in mind is that in many aspects of our transportation interventions, we don't really have to totally reinvent the wheel and just take into consideration what already exists elsewhere. Now, that being the case, if it's not new, then how does new mobility factor into the way that we are doing things now? I guess it's more on how we execute or how we deliver. Because I mean, hours, efforts, days spent thinking about, desiring about new mobility things are useless if they are not realized at one point or the other. So I guess what we've been doing in the department is putting in place new aspects of doing things throughout the project development life cycle. So it comes in many different forms, but in the department, we simplify it to involve first planning and project development. And when it comes to planning and project development, Ken's already mentioned this, that big interventions to solve big problems require major project preparation. We have this thing that we say, I think Pavitt of the Philippine Country Office was the one who said it, mega projects require mega project preparation. And that is why in 2017, 2018, we worked with the Asian Development Bank in putting together a project preparation facility, which we understand is the first of its kind for the ADB. It's the first of its kind for the Philippines. We've never borrowed money to prepare projects before, and it has been extremely successful. We had our first tranche of that project preparation facility in 2018. We borrowed 100 million US dollars. Tranche 2 was 200 million US dollars in 2020. And very recently, we've closed our third tranche for another 200 million US dollars. And before tranche 3, the number that we have in the department is that for every $1 that we utilize from that facility, it helped in supporting 747 US dollars of active transport investments, live transport investments that we have. So I guess element number 1 is mega project development is required for mega projects. But you go beyond project preparation. Once you've gotten your investment approval because you've designed a project well, then you have to find the money. And I guess this is where another element, another new element of the way we do things factors in, and that's what we refer to internally as our think big philosophy. We no longer think about $10 million, $100 million contracts or projects, for example. In our railway sector, for example, in the last 8 years, we've so far, as of the end of 2023, awarded 53 contracts with an average contract amount of 400 million US dollars apiece. I guess that goes to show that when you're dealing with problems or issues as big as what we are dealing with in the transport department, You cannot afford to have piecemeal, fragmented solutions. So I guess it's a second element of how we do things differently: project preparation and project sizing. And of course, a third one would be partnering with partners that can deliver the scope, the scale, the expertise that we need. We've been aggressively diversifying our development partnerships. The project preparation facility, for example, that I was referring to earlier, has already given birth to another project preparation facility loan from another development partner. I saw some AIIB representatives in the room, and we're already in talks of another preparation facility with the EIB. Because again, when the gap is too big, then you cannot afford to be picky. You cannot afford to take one side or the other. You just have to maximize and utilize all facilities and resources available. So that is the birth of the Davao Bus project, for example, as you saw in the screen. We've been trying to modernize our jeepneys for, when did we start? 2016. We're already in the 10th year now. There's 180,000 jeepneys, 180 to 240,000, depending on which statistics you look at. But Davao Bus is a new way of delivering, which reflects all of the new elements that I just shared with you. And it came up with this big approach to a big problem scenario where all of the 7,000 jeepneys in Davao will be modernized in one go, down to 1,100 modern buses, 386 of which are electric. The previous 400 kilometers of unique route length that it had will now cover 600 kilometers, and we will be building 1,000 plus stations, 5 depots, and a number of electric charging stations throughout the country. So again, nothing new in terms of what the project is, but in terms of how the project is being delivered, how it was developed, how it's being financed. I guess those are the new things that really make a difference.
Very inspiring, TJ. Yeah. In this brief 5 minutes, you've been able to give us all the ingredients. And I like this word that mega project takes mega preparation. You talk about the planning. You talk about not reinventing the wheel, but tailoring the project and getting the right approach to actually deliver. So thank you for sharing that. And we'll continue to talk about this aspect in this session. Now, Diana, would like to hear from you. So again, you are from the University of Michigan, and you've been working on strategy and program to support the production of e-vehicles in low and middle income countries. Of course, e-mobility is something we've been talking a lot since this morning, and that will continue. This is part of the solution. We said this morning that e-mobility is not the panacea because it needs to be integrated with a whole set of other measures, but this is a key ingredient. So please tell us more about this.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today, so thank you very much for the invitation. Indeed, I come from Michigan. Michigan, as many of you probably know, is known as the headquarters of the automotive industry in North America, certainly the birthplace of the automobile, and a state with incredible leadership in terms of the transition to clean energy and electric mobility, electrification in the industry. At our institute, we're focused on research, consulting, and knowledge dissemination regarding business in emerging markets. So all of our work is global, and my work indeed is quite focused on the transition to electric mobility in those markets. So a few of the things we look at in our work include looking at markets and countries with automotive manufacturing capacity and how they are going about the transition to producing electric vehicles and getting involved in that value chain. And then for those countries without existing manufacturing capacity for internal combustion engine vehicles, how they are looking at tapping into new opportunities brought about by the electric vehicle transition. So we really take a perspective of business opportunities and also looking at the challenges and implications of this huge shift and transformation. We also examine companies specifically, so established companies going through this type of pivots and startups and startup innovations in different markets. When we think about the ecosystem or looking at different countries, one way that we think about this work as part of our research and some of the findings that we've identified so far are really focused on three key enablers of policy framework, infrastructure, and workforce. And for each of those, we've looked at different markets from around the world, identify business knowledge, and capturing that knowledge so that we can exchange it and make sure that we are not reinventing the wheel, as you mentioned pointedly. So when we think about policy frameworks, certainly policy is one of the key levers that we see to enable this transition. And when it comes to the opportunity of producing electric vehicles in country, developing the supply chain and the local ecosystem to take advantage of those opportunities, there are many different strategies that we're seeing, different players, especially in low and middle income countries with, for example, resources, critical minerals, materials, related sectors or interest in really engaging in this value chain. And policy is one of the main things that we look at in terms of those strategies. We've conducted research in Brazil, India, South Africa, Mexico, where I'm from, and where we have different projects as well, and quite focused on understanding what has worked and what has not worked so far in terms of this transition. When it comes to infrastructure, that's another aspect that we consider definitely a key enabler as well. Not only thinking about charging infrastructure or tangible infrastructure, which is certainly critical for this local supply chain or ecosystem to develop, but also intangible infrastructure. And one of the things we've looked at a lot is what it takes for a local ecosystem to be able to facilitate, again, an EV or e-mobility ecosystem, right, local context. And so one of those players that we've identified are mobility innovation hubs. We're actually launching a new report tomorrow looking at different models, 6 different models of mobility innovation hubs in various markets and what role they play in developing that local e-mobility ecosystem. And then last, in the workforce area, certainly when we think about this transition of such magnitude, pretty quickly we come into the issue of the skill gap and being able to find the talent needed to support and promote a transition to electric vehicles, whether it is for 4-wheeler cars or 2- and 3-wheelers or different segments. So we have been identifying different EV-related training programs, again, in different low and middle income countries, looking at various models and what academia or other organizations are doing to be able to prepare local talent and support a particular country in the transition to electric mobility. So policy, infrastructure, workforce, and then we also are conducting work directly with established companies and looking at innovative startups in different places. I was actually trying to connect with some here in Manila as well to understand the innovations that they are developing in terms of e-mobility and what are their needs to be able to scale up and contribute to that transformation locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. So 3 key enablers, all equally important, and I like the one on the workforce because sometimes it's a dimension that is neglected, and it's truly important to invest in people in this skill set. Thank you, Diana. Now let's go to UITP, so International Association of Public Transport. First, we'll hear pre-recorded remarks from Mohamed Mezghani. He's the Secretary General of the organization. So please play this video.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine a world without urban public transport and think what the consequences would be. Our cities would be at standstill, gridlocked with cars. The air would be so polluted we would not be able to breathe. Our impact on the climate would be catastrophic, having enormous economic and social costs globally. Road traffic fatalities and injuries will drastically grow even more, and our economies would tumble with people unable to get to their jobs or access education and healthcare. This is why we need public transport. It is essential for the sustainability of our cities, empowering lives and livelihoods, and ensuring no one and no place is left behind. UITP calls on making local mobility a priority. We need to step up investments in public transport infrastructure and services. And only then we can unlock the economic, social, and environmental potential of the sector. The public sector must step in to guarantee a certain level of stability through structural, dedicated mobility funds acting as a driver. Clear rules and a coherent approach at regional and global level by competent authorities are key. At the same time, we need agile regulatory frameworks and financial incentives to deliver the urban transport systems that have the capacity and quality people desire. This is why at UITP, a global network of 2,000 public transport authorities, operators, and the business supply industry in 100 countries, we are proud to work tirelessly to ensure that we have integrated public transport systems fit for the future. As the world hits 8 billion people, with most living in urban areas, only half of the world's urban population can currently claim to have adequate access to public transport, meaning we are way off from delivering the Sustainable Development Goal target on expanding public transport by 2030. To get us back on track, we need effective governance and agile regulation, solid and stable long-term funding schemes, as well as ambitious and bold political leadership. We need to rethink our cities, focusing on strategies and policies, prioritizing the movement of people, not cars, while enhancing access to affordable and efficient public transport, walking, and cycling. Together, we can advance public transport and make our cities the very best they can be for current and future generations.
Prioritize the movement of people, not movement of cars, and so many other things. So that's a great inspiration provided by Mohamed. And as I am listening to us talking, I really realize that we are among friends. Someone mentioned partnership, and TJ, you mentioned the importance of partnership. I realize that, of course, ADB is on partnership with the government of the Philippines, but we are among MOU partners. UITP and ADB have signed an MOU last year, sorry. ITDP, we've been on a MOU for quite some years now. AFD, of course, is a key partner of the ADB. And in the University of Michigan, we are currently discussing focus area for a new MOU that will be signed this year. So we really are among partners, and partnerships are really important. I also realize that each time that we are hearing from each other, more and more we are very much aligned in what we're saying. So I think that may tell us that we are somehow going to the right direction. Purnima, governance of on-demand mobility services has been a topic you've been working on, and please share with us the main learnings and recommendations that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone giving me this opportunity to share the stage with such an eminent speakers as well as expert of this field. So as Muhammad, our Secretary General, said that we are from UITP. UITP has a history of more than 135 years old, working with different stakeholders of public transport, promoting more sustainable modes of public transport, because we understand that developing sustainable public transport will provide mobility for all, and no other sector like the public transport has such a positive externalities like creating jobs, access to educations, creating more economic growth, as well as improving the quality of life. So if once we will promote sustainable mode of public transport, create more infrastructure, we improve the lives, we improve the city's life as well as create more smart cities. So we understand this concept, and we understand that now the world is changing. Public transport has been, like traditional modes of public transport has been challenged like never before because of the advancement in technology. AI is coming in our lives, demographic shift overall, as well as youth population, especially in the Asia Pacific region, which has the one of the largest youth population right now, around 750 million young generations from 15 to age 24. They are living in this region in different parts of the countries. So these people are bringing the change. They want public transport at their fingertip. It should be accessible, it should be smart, it should be affordable, and it should be everywhere, every time. So we understand with Asia and Pacific region moving towards the fast and developed smart mobility system, which TJ Batam has said, new mobility system, on demand or shared mobility system. The market is also changing. It is shifting its form from, it's shifting its base from Europe, North America to Asia Pacific. Uh, it is projected that by 2033, there will be around 35% market share for new mobility services in Asia Pacific region, with some of the largest mobility players like Didi Chuxin, which is one of the largest name is China in shared mobility, e-mobility services, Uber, Ola, Grabs. They are having big market chunks in Asia Pacific, as well as creating opportunities for micro mobility, shared like shared scooters, shared bikes. These are the market which are now people are investing in these markets, and even authorities are understanding that they cannot stop this change, so they are changing their regulations, their laws. They are slowly and steadily moving forward to accepting the work in collaboration, in public-private partnership. We did a study in UITP understanding the governance structure of 10 cities in Asia and Pacific region, from Singapore to Taipei, Seoul, Hong Kong, New Delhi, even Melbourne. And we did two surveys with users' perspective to understand that, as well as a stakeholder, public transport stakeholder survey to understand the authorities and operators as well as the service providers' hesitations, their perceptions, and their understanding. And we found out not only young generations from young people or middle-aged population who are very tech, even old age people are using these kinds of services because they cannot have access the public transport if they have some issues. So the population with the old age as well as uh, families with disability members, they are also accessing this. So it can be one of the solutions for aging society with the population with the vulnerable group. And we understand that the even governance side, countries like Singapore, Seoul, as well as Shanghai, they are opening their market, their regulations, they are changing their laws, doing lots of amendments, and working in collaboration with the local mobility players, local startup companies, as mentioned by Kanjo-san, that we should be working and opening ourselves so that the waves of this change will create benefits to all of us. It should be bringing the change, and this change should be good for everyone, good for all, and accessible and affordable to all. So thank you, and I will stop my talk here, and then I will discuss.
Thank you, Bonima. I like the depth of the research work you're doing, and what I like with UITP is that everything is grounded on actual projects. You mobilize your members that you have in countries across the world. And for those who don't know, on the UITP website, you have all these publications. So whatever the topic, whatever is your topic of interest, you will always find something and learn from other parts of the world. Thank you. Thank you.
Just to mention that we have one of the biggest resource pool of research works, as well as we do our research as well as a members research also, we call as a my UITP library, which has 60,000 plus research work in that library, and you can access as a member and some of the work as a non-members also. So thank you.
Thank you, Purnima. Now we are going to another knowledge partner, ITDP, an Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. So Deliani, you will tell us everything about the low emission zone project in Jakarta, please.
Yeah, thank you, Bertrand, for having me in this kind of like very wonderful session. So it's kind of like really interesting when our topic today is talking about the smart mobility, since like in many cases, we in ITTP, we assist number of cities and also our Ministry of Transportations to work on how we want to work for the public transportation system. And recently, we also work and help them to develop a roadmap for the electrification for the public transportations as well as for the 2 and 3-wheelers. And the thing is, the interesting thing is, when we talk in a very international forum last time, back in November last year, we are talking more about how then we tailor this kind of like more transport planning system into one of like the very complete and comprehensive planning, where the urban mobility, where the land use planning, for example. So the thing that we work now in Jakarta, since like we already do this kind of like massive improvements together with the government, with the officials, to work on the public transportation system, as well as their kind of like roadmap to work on the electrification, we now think about how then we work for the traffic demand management. Because the thing is, though we do this kind of like electrification, based on our global study on compact and electrified, Indonesia will never go for net zero until at least 2060 or more. So our commitment will not be completed if we only do for the electrification. So that's why if we want to work for the net zero goal, we need to work for the land use planning. And it will also improve our way of thinking on how bring people more back to the cities and live in a decent situation within the cities. So in LEZ, in the low emission zone Jakarta, so it already initiated in February 2021, and we do evaluation with that because of the area is very, very small and the impact is not that kind of like big and significant. So that's why we do suggest the government to work more kind of like hard work to really implement the low emission zone concept. So within this kind of like thing and also smart mobility, it will not only talking about how we want to preserve an area, so it not to be able to be passed by the vehicles, the ICE vehicles, for example, but it's not only doing with the electrification, but we also want to have this kind of like smart technology to be installed to monitor not only about who can pass the zone, who will go inside, but also to think more than that. Maybe talking about the parking system, talking about the ERP, talking more about how we want to limit the traffic, whether it's in a peak or off a peak off hours. So this kind of like intervention can be do with this kind of like a touch for the smart mobility and technology within this kind of like planning. And in Jakarta, now the thing is, we really see that this is a very important and also a big opportunity to work with. But though we are still like looking for the opportunities for the financing scheme, because of the thing is to implement for the whole city, it's not kind of like a cheap investment to make. So we really need to work with this kind of like a very cool and also comprehensive plan to offer, because we also want to see it as a very one package, one complete package, not only talking about the TOD, because the TOD can also be part of the LEZ, but then we want to make this kind of like also with the communication, public kind of like outreach, where we can also invite the participation for people, so they can also do the kind of like suggestions on roadmap, where place that we can also do for the LEZ for the next pilot. So these kind of like things that we think about at the moment. And we are now looking for this kind of like we think that smart mobility will not only work for how we want to enforce the traffic should be in the city, but we also want to tailor this kind of like regulation and then the implementation itself as well as the law enforcement, because somehow we kind of like lack for the law enforcement one. So by doing this kind of like a very thoroughly smart mobility ecosystem where we can like work on it and build on it, we think that we can like make it happen and we lead to a very sustainable and inclusive mobility.
It sounds wonderful. Thank you for taking us there and giving all these insights. Now let me turn to Anne-Laure Ullmann from the French Development Agency. The AFD has been promoting sustainable urban mobility for decades now. AFD has been maybe ahead of the others, saying that it will come. And has accumulated experience of sustainable urban mobility planning and very innovative projects in that space. So, Anne-Laure, please tell us a little bit more about all this and the AFD approach to smart mobilities.
So regarding AFD approach for smart mobilities, the idea was to find the link between innovative projects and development projects, because it's often very disconnected. So what was missing in the field of urban mobility was a global partnership, a place to address new challenge with time, expertise, different expertise and tools for innovation. So this is the Mobilize Your City partnership. I think we are several members of this partnership in this table. It's still expanding. New cities are joining the partnership every year. So cities, countries, implementing organization, knowledge partners and donors are collaborating for a common mission. Is to transform urban mobility. The leverage effects from the financial point of view is quite impressive, because we've just 55 million in grants. Mobilize Your City has helped member cities to mobilize more than 1.5 billion euros for real project implementations. So what are the activities that Mobilize Your City partnership supports? First, it's planning, sustainable urban mobility plans and national urban mobility plans. It's not particularly innovative in itself, of course, but with the approach developed by Mobilize Your City, it's a very tailor-made approach, collaborative, gender-sensitive, and including two focus on paratransit and active modes. And these two specific areas are huge areas for innovation. Technological innovation, with electrification of vehicles, the digitization of the offer, even in the design, for example, the bicycle lanes designed 10 years ago are very different from the one designed today. Financial innovation in business model, leasing, also institutional innovation with working with people and the clusters we are not used to work with as donor. So this planning approach is very, can carry a lot of innovation. The second main activity supported by Mobilize Your City partnership is a small-scale innovative project. So we try to incubate, it's just the beginning, not a lot of projects to be presented now, to incubate scalable solutions, then assess them, and then accelerate the adoption of proven solutions if it's working. And so this is very important, because as donors, we often, it's difficult for us to finance small projects, but innovation became small often. And so it was the missing link between the project we usually finance and the small innovative project that are carried out by the partners. And the third main approach is the knowledge hub. So yeah, everybody here can contribute. So we have a toolbox, training material, including mobility as a service, open data and transport, toolbox of really quality tools that are now appropriate all over the world, even beyond the partnership. An increased pool of examples of lessons learned that are very easily accessible with a secretariat also animating all the and responding to the question of the members. So yeah, I think this partnership can be very helpful in promoting innovation in urban mobility.
Thank you, Anne-Laure. And Mobilize Your City partnership has been launched at the COP in Paris, the COP 21. So supported by the French and the German government. Many partners, so since then it only grew. I think we have 80 member cities that are beneficiaries. And so it's a global initiative. ADB and AFD have been on a partnership to implement Mobilize Your City in Asia since 2019. And many of the delegates participating in the forum are also involved and MYC member. There will be on Thursday morning session, MYC session with our MYC partner. There will be a focus on NMT, active modes, and paratransit. So if that is of interest to you, we'll meet again on Thursday morning. Okay, thank you everyone. So much substance in each of your speech. So now we'll try to make it easy. So there will be 2 rounds of questions, same question to all, and you will, of course, respond differently. You all talk about project or innovation or successes in the space of smart mobility. Now the question would be, and there was a mention on the potential for replication of this initiative. So the question to each of you, relating to what you said, what you told us, is how feasible is a replication and duplication of the innovation you presented? So you talked to us about beautiful things. So how feasible is a replication of it, and what would be the condition for it? Maybe Kenzo, again, you will go first.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Actually, I didn't present any specific projects, so it's a bit difficult to say something about replication of the particular project. But generally speaking, in Asian Pacific, it's a great opportunity, the chances for everyone, since, you know, the Asian Pacific region is a very diversified countries and economies. Some countries very advanced stage, some not, it's not really. For example, in the PRC, China, it's a very advanced country in terms of smart mobility or digital or e-mobility, EVs, or maybe e-buses. So there are a lot of good examples in China. India, for example, they have very good, you know, EV policy, so-called FAME 1, FAME 2 kind of things. So maybe that kind of policy framework can be replicated to other countries or regions as well. So that there are a lot of good examples here and there in this region, and just neighbors. And it's we have some similarity, common kind of features to some extent. So maybe that will be really seriously considered how we can replicate the good example, the good practice to other countries, to other cities. But at the same time, it's not really simple, just transplant that one particular project to others. Of course, there are some differences in population, economy, size, degree of development, policy framework, kind of regulatory framework. There are a lot of differences also there. So we need to consider that kind of elements as well before, you know, transplanting kind of, you know, that one particular good example of good practice to the others. Not just particular project, but in terms of financing of the transport project, also the replicability or replication itself will be important. Transport project require annually 560 billion US dollars in Asia and Pacific only every year. That kind of, you know, financing requirement for the transport project. We talked about something like 100 billion, you know, by 2030 from ADB, compared with the actual requirement for that investment for the transport project. 100 billion is still very small, very marginal. ADB's contribution is very, very marginal to that actual transport investment requirement. So most of that investment should be done by some other development partners, governments, or maybe private sectors. So good example, good practice to be shown to the DMC countries to be replicated to the other project by private, by government, by other development partners could be also very, very important. So ADB's contribution is very limited, marginal, but we need to choose a good project to be replicated in the future for other financiers to support that kind of transport project. Just one example of that, the Peshawar BRT project that is in Pakistan. The project is completed last year, but operation started a few years back already. So the BRT project is award-winning kind of BRT project. It's really successful and carrying 300,000 passengers, or maybe more than that, every day. One good aspect would be that the private operator will be involved in that operation, and that operation will be very efficient and very effective, and very much high standard, the service provided by the private sector. But in addition to that, there are several good, small but good examples, like non-motorized transport to be also provided, like pedestrian bikeways, also shared bikes, also provided in front of the university stations. So many university students using that bicycle just going to the university from the station, that kind of things. Also TOD, transit-oriented development. It's not really big TOD, but small TOD like a commercial center development near station. And also multimodal facilities between that BRT station and the intercity terminal, bus terminal. So also park and ride kind of facilities. So these will be included in that Peshawar BRT project. So basically, this means that they try to increase non-fare revenue for that, the BRT system, as well as to attract more passengers for that BRT system, which means that, more financially sustainable BRT or maybe urban public transport system can be developed through this kind of initiatives. Financial sustainability is always a challenge for the most of the urban public transport. So this could be the good example, maybe hopefully to be replicated to other public transport system as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenzo. I realize I made a mistake. I forgot to mention that we would like to keep maybe 2-3 minutes each. But yeah, that's a perfect. You have the perfect excuse. It's my mistake. I forgot to mention it. But it was very inspiring. And what you said, when you have a good project, then the potential for application is there. You've taken the example of the Peshawar BRT project. TJ, same question. And in your case, you have the choice because there are so many projects. So I would like to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I think I've already mentioned that we are actually already in the process of replicating that concept of mega project development for mega projects. And our 3 tranches of infrastructure preparation and innovation facility loans from the ADB is a testament to that. But maybe going into project specific, the Davao bus, we've been describing it in so many different ways. We've described it as a pilot project, as a pathfinder project, as a showcase project. And that's because we've been working on the Davao bus project precisely with the end in view of replicating it throughout the country. I introduced earlier the idea or the desire to modernize our 180,000 jeepneys throughout the country. And so far, we've done 7,000 to 8,000 of that in the last 10 years. Now, one of the reasons we think that that has been the case is because of the approach that we've taken. And I guess in Davao, we're trying to take on a different approach, and that is to package the entire requirement into one project, for which the Asian Development Bank has raised $1 billion to support us. so that we are able to deliver outcomes at scale. So that's one project that we very much are intending to replicate. A second project that we are working on with the ADB is our EDSA Greenways project. It's a pedestrian mobility project, which is essentially our first project, our largest mega project in the field of pedestrian mobility, of active transport. So never in the past have we borrowed money, much more developed a project at scale before the EDSA Greenways project. And I guess this goes into what UITP mentioned earlier about demonstrating, or I guess that concept of moving people and not cars. I mean, money should follow that as well. So another project that we're working on with the ADB is the MRT4 project, which is essentially sometimes we describe as our attempt or our effort to consolidate our learnings from what we refer to as our pipeline one of rail projects in the last 8 years. And I guess the purpose of that is for us to consolidate the learnings, consolidate the best practices, the not so best practices that we've experienced, and to replicate that in the pipeline that we are rolling out moving forward. So again, replication is very much at the forefront of our strategy, especially in our pipeline with the ADB.
Thank you very much, TJ. And projects speak better than words. So great example. Diana, please.
Thank you. Yes, so I'll mention certainly one of the projects that we would love to replicate and that I believe and we are seeing a lot of interest is the one I mentioned with Mexico. So this is really a partnership between us at the University of Michigan and a state in Mexico, a northern state, which has a lot of auto part manufacturing capacity and is very interested in staying competitive as part of the transition to electric vehicles and developing that supply chain in the state. So the partnership involves helping industry learn about opportunities all along the value chain for electric vehicles, from raw materials all the way to recycling. So really kind of raise awareness about what that means, both for established companies and startups. It also includes academic partnerships to support universities there, specifically engineering schools, to develop faculty capacity on electric vehicle training and battery manufacturing training, as well as develop capacity for commercializing prototypes related to energy and mobility within the university so that there can be more innovation that happens in this sector at the university level. Last, it involves different exchanges between this state is called Chihuahua, and Michigan, so that we can connect and share knowledge precisely about what's happening in Michigan, and the many different stakeholders involved in e-mobility with stakeholders that are interested in learning and connecting from the state of Chihuahua. So I think this partnership has been very, very successful. We are in discussions with an African potential partner as well, and other places, including Costa Rica and some other countries as well, are very interested in a similar exercise. I think there is a lot of need and appetite to uncover experiences that are working, right? Connecting them with resources and expertise that can be helpful, and then documenting and sharing those lessons as well so that we can expand that type of impact.
Thank you. And documenting and listen. Yeah, you can go ahead with the applause. I don't want to refrain that. But you ended up with something that is extremely important. So documenting all experimentation, whether it worked or not, you learn something and you do better project. Purnima?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Asia Pacific region, in this region, this initiative for shared and on-demand mobility services, it's already taking place. It is becoming one of the largest market for these kinds of mobility, with China and India coming forward in terms of the electric mobility with Shenzhen bus. They have the 100% e-bus fleet, as well as a Guangzhou public transport. They are big names in the e-buses. ANZ region, especially the Auckland Transport Authority, they are experimenting with the hydrogen buses. Singapore is coming with the idea of Green Plan 2030, where they are planning to go for 100% electric vehicles by 2040, and they are implementing electric charging points, around 60,000 charging points in their HDB housing development boards houses, as well as 20,000 in the private premises, working with the private operators and private authorities. So these changes are taking place already in Asia Pacific region in different countries. As Kanjo-san has said that Asia Pacific region is a diverse, has a complex democracies. So it is taking place, but in a different pace. And therefore, we need to think in terms of promoting it, working with it. And I understand that it cannot be stopped. So there are challenges, but it has opportunities also. Challenges in terms of the regulatory hurdles, challenges in terms of the infrastructure, financing, repurposing of the roads, but it has opportunity in terms of the connecting first and last mile mobility, in terms of the providing accessibility to the remote areas, into the inaccessible areas, as well as bringing local partners to work with the government and to work with the operators. So it has both pros and cons, but it is going to take place. So thank you.
Thank you, and I like your enthusiasm on all this. We need a good energy to implement and face all these challenges. Deliani, so how replicable are these low emission zone projects in Jakarta, and do you see potential for developing those maybe outside of Indonesia or in other cities in Indonesia?
Yeah, it's kind of like really possible to do the replication, because reflecting on our last projects on transit-oriented development, though it's very slow to work on, but then it's still possible to be replicated to the other cities. And actually, we are working for the national level for the LEZ guidance, so maybe it will be happening this year, but yeah, so we are also like really see that the opportunities we see in other cities in Southeast Asia, because of our work now also focus on the Southeast Asia level. And then we see number of cities that already work on their public transportation improvement, and they have opportunities to work not only limited to the transit-oriented development, but also looking for the opportunities for the LEZ. But the challenges may be talking more about the financing scheme, because in LEZ in Jakarta, we still like looking for this kind of like opportunities to work. And if we want to do this, and we also want to develop this kind of like indicators and also how to measure about the things, because we do the documentation and also evaluation. Based on that kind of like evaluations and also documentation, we will develop this kind of like indicators, so the indicators can be applied and also adjusted to other cities in Indonesia or outside of Indonesia. And after that, I think the partnership once again also play a very important role to do this kind of like replication, because of we do this kind of like technical assistance, but however, we need partners to work with to implement this kind of like things to happen.
Thank you, Deliani. Now you seem to be ready with the mic.
So as a donor, I think we need to go at the other scale to support to find solutions to support more the local level, especially the municipalities and the operators, because they are, we saw also in the previous session, they are the one who have the solutions, they are the one who are in position to innovate. And so usually for transport, we finance a big infrastructure projects through sovereign loans, but we really need to support even financially, to take risk also, to directly finance municipalities and to develop more corporate loans to the operators that are really dealing with the problem and finding innovative solutions. So I think this is one of the main challenges for us as donors.
Thank you. Anne-Laure? A lot of question from the audience, and thank you for that. And going through the question, I see several evolving around active mode and cycling. We'll not have time to take the question one by one, but maybe the question would be how to better promote active modes in our cities in Asia. The question can be to any of you, any good practice or example or cities that have been innovative on that front, or experience that you would like to share on how to best promote active modes and cycling in projects and in cities.
I think I can take this question coming from Singapore. So Singapore, as we know, it has one of the best public transport. But Singapore Land Transport Authority, they have a campaign of 40-minute town, 20-minute cities concept, and they are promoting in a big way walk, ride, and cycle concept. So they are making the city with good lanes for cycling, as well as a pedestrian walks, and public transport is highly subsidized. So we don't feel the need of having our own car. I'm coming from a family which we can buy a car, but we don't see the need of having cars because our public transport system is so good, so efficient. Around 67% ridership through public transport. During the COVID time, there was a lump, but now we are again seeing the rise of ridership. And this comes with the government willingness as well as a people who wants to ride in the public transport. It comes vice versa both. It comes with the leadership, as Mohammed mentioned, strong leadership, as well as people who want to ride, who want to use this public transport. And this makes overall sustainable mode of public transport with walk, ride, and cycle. And you really enjoy this kind of, you don't feel like, we don't want to make city for cars, we want to make city for people where the community can come together and celebrate whole aspect of life. So Singapore is doing this kind of work, and we really applaud that work. So thank you.
Thank you, Purnima. And somehow you're saying that you also need to have an efficient and well-developed public transport system when you want to develop active modes and make the people walk. Talking about Singapore, interestingly, so they have a very advanced public transport system, of course, but they realized that they could do better on NMTs, because sometimes it's not easy to cross the street. You have to walk long distances to be able to get to this destination. So they have realized that, and they have new plans to improve even more the walkability of the city. So that's interesting to see that even the most advanced city continue to improve. So it's just a continued journey. I can see Deliani would like to share, and I know that NMT is something that is strongly promoted by ITDP, so please, you don't even have to ask, I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you for also good reading my gesture. So yeah, in addition to that, actually we do this kind of like best practices when we were working for walking development and also infrastructure for the Jakarta city, which we also invite public to participate on this kind of like planning for walking and cycling facilities, because it will also, we want to understand about where, what to allocate the budget, and also what kind of infrastructures to put and fit the needs. So this kind of like also the things that we want to invite people, and after the project's done, the people will already know that, oh yeah, this kind of like projects already implemented because of me. So just kind of like the things we want to invite more people, and also it trigger more kind of like development coming from the development, because the government, because of the government also understand about the needs of the people, because they thought that in the very first time, the government thought that it will be only coming from certain places, maybe in the city center, but not. The participations and also these kind of like complaints coming from all over Jakarta. So that's why it initiated and pushed the city government to work for the whole city roadmap for walking and cycling infrastructures.
Thank you very much. TJ, there is also a lot going on that we can see in the Philippines and in Metro Manila, including these days on Sundays without car in some zones or some projects. So please, would you like to share some of the good experience or thoughts?
So maybe two things. Number one, I think I've mentioned earlier already that the department has started venturing into making investments, infrastructure investments that are at scale and that are specifically designed to promote active transport, non-motorized transport. And we're piloting that, we're intending to replicate that. And that's because I think this is one of those areas where the concept of the invisible hand comes in. If you make it convenient, if you make it accessible, then people will naturally follow. You don't even have to convince them. Just put the right conditions in place, just put the right infrastructure in place, and it will just happen. So number one. Number two, maybe a shift in thinking. Sometimes people, commuters have gotten too used to using their car to get from point A to point B that they don't realize, and this is something that we saw in one of our studies from one of our recent metro lines, that I forget the exact number, I was trying to look for it, but a substantial number of trips are actually under 4 kilometers in the metro. So if you think about it, I mean, under 4 kilometers, do you really have to take your car? Do you really even have to take public transport? That's easily accessible with good active mobility infrastructure, non-motorized transport, but people have to realize it. Because sometimes you've just gotten too used to using your car to get from your house to the supermarket, to get your house to the school. You don't realize that, hey, it's not so far. So maybe those two things. Government-led investment in infrastructure and government-led change in seeing things, change in viewing things, and hopefully the invisible hand works and get people to choose themselves to use active transport.
Thank you. I like this invisible hand. So once you experience it, you see it's possible and it's easy, then you go for it. It's all right. Okay, maybe last question, very short, 30 seconds. So I will not ask you whether you are optimistic that mobility condition can be changed and we can do something about it. We already feel it. So maybe the question would be, what would be your number one advice to a decision maker? You meet a mayor of a big city, he wants to improve the mobility condition in the city, doesn't know where to start or what to do. In your experience, what would be the best advice you can give? And let's not follow the order. So maybe we can take it reverse or from the middle. Just take the mic and share your thought.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think one thing I would advise, it's something that we've seen in Michigan specifically at the state level has worked incredibly well, and that is that the governor established the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, really aligned with the state goals of working on this transition to electrification and also looking at all technology advancements for future mobility. And so this office serves as an ecosystem orchestrator, really bringing together and coordinating different stakeholders, different players, and different initiatives at the state level. And we find in our research that oftentimes that figure does not exist in a particular place. So I would say invest in establishing that type of organization or equipping an existing organization with that kind of potential capability.
That's very nice. Office of the Future. Purnima?
It will be just two main suggestions. First is collaboration, as mentioned here many times, PPP. Like we should be working with, the government should be working with the private sectors also, innovators, investors, public transport operators, so that they can bring the change in public transport. And second is a flexibility in approach. You should be flexible to adopt the new innovation, new technology, because this wave is going to change everything. And if you will be stopping ourselves to not going through this change, you will not improve yourself. I should not be taking the example, but Hong Kong is still working in the gray zone for on-demand mobility services. So slowly it is coming up, but it is not like the Singapore or probably not like the Tokyo, because they have the very efficient public transport system, which they don't feel the need of it. But slowly it is going to change. It's still Uber is working there. So, but it is still working in the gray zone. So these authorities should have the flexible approach, as well as the work should in the collaboration. So just two advices, and then the rest will take place itself.
Thank you. Collaboration and flexibility. I like it. Deliani?
Well, dear madam, dear sir, let's collaborate. Let's see what we have now. Who is on the list? Who's worked with the cities at the moment? What kind of like the data that you had? And see the possibilities about open the public, about the things, what complaints that people made. And then looking for this kind of like collaboration to make a fruitful discussion and result.
Thank you. Making it user-centric. And Laura?
That would be not to forget the public awareness and the sensibilization, because it's very, even if the infrastructure are very nice, it can be, the transition is always a difficult process to accept for a lot of people working, people with babies, people, elderly people, etc. So it's very important that people understand the effect of air pollution on their health, the effect of not moving. And so it's a very powerful tool to convince people. And there are also, to share this message, there are simple actions that car-free days that can be implemented. It's very, just one day, see what the city can be. It's a very strong tool.
Raising awareness and demonstration. Before we go to Kenzo and TJ, talking about the future, some of you may have been not interviewed, but had a discussion with our future thinker that we have with us during the forum. If you've not been approached, you may be and see them. It's our colleague, ADB colleague, Navin. It's a tall guy, so you cannot miss him. And he's doing that with our friends from the Asian Transport Outlook initiative. So if you see ADB colleagues approaching you, asking you to talk and share thoughts about the future of transport for you, from your perspective, your experience, or as a practitioner on your quality, professional quality. So please share thoughts. It's really important. We like to hear all of these views. So looking at the future is also a source of inspiration for the project that we are trying to develop collectively. Kenzo, what would be your advice to the mayor of your favorite city?
Yeah, of course, definitely that kind of ecosystem enabling environment for the upstream policy framework would be important. But other than that, my advice is to consider the end users or the citizens. Maybe that transport service will be delivered, but the benefit will be delivered to these people. Considering that these people may create a lot of more opportunities for the urban public transport, like Peshawar BRT has done so far. In case of Japan National Railway, before privatization, they say, oh, if you want to take train, you may, kind of things, that attitude. But now after privatization, it's completely different. What is the benefit for the passengers? What will be the benefit for the citizens? That creates a lot of opportunity for the businesses of that urban public transport. Now, revenue, fare-based revenue, non-fare-based revenue will be almost 50-50 right now.
Thank you, Kenzo. And TJ, your recommendation will also be the closing of this session, because we are reaching the age, not of the hour, but we have the cocktail ceremony that will start soon. So I'm not putting you on the spot because you're already on the spot, but your thought will be also the closing of this session.
much. I guess the session is called Smart Mobilities and Emerging Modes. So perhaps advice, I'd quote someone smart that I know. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Albert Einstein. So I guess if you keep on doing transport projects without doing sufficient project development, it's like shooting first, then aiming later. You'll never get nowhere. You'll never realize the transport outcomes and any other ancillary or related outcomes that you are hitting. If we continue on doing piecemeal interventions because you think resources are not there, you don't have enough political time, then again, if you don't scale up, again, you will not realize the scaled up transportation outcomes that your constituents would require. Well-developed projects, I always say, I mean, the department in 2016 started with under $1 billion of budget. We are now a $9 billion a year agency. We started with less than 1% of the national government's fiscal envelope. We're now almost 10%. If you think that fiscal resources are not available, then you'll never get nowhere. I always say, well-developed projects, develop your projects well, the money will follow. Related to that, diversify to amplify your financing. We've very actively been diversifying our funding, our financing resources. In 2016, we did not have a pipeline to talk about with the Asian Development Bank. Now the ADB is supporting $21 billion of active projects of the Department of Transport with $4 billion of financing in the initial tranches. So again, develop your projects well, resources will follow, and that's because, and it's been said throughout the session, there are so many partners, there's so many similarly minded, capable, experienced, well-resourced partners that are available out there. And so long as it invests time and effort in getting your thoughts together, getting your projects together, then those partnerships will yield results that even maybe the smallest local government may have never thought possible. So I guess, again, smart mobility, do things differently, innovate, as our project preparation facility is called, and again, transport outcomes will follow.
Thank you again, TJ. Such a wonderful closing to this wonderful discussion. Please join me in thanking all our speakers. It's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, picture. Of course.